Hello, welcome to the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and we're very excited to have with us today Ian Leslie. Ian is the executive director of the BAM FAM Foundation, and Ian has great background doing terrific work in the community, and we're going to hear about some of his initiatives and some of the work that he's going to do down at the Super Bowl in Tampa this year as well. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Roy. Appreciate it.
Um, I know that you've got a lot of things in the pipeline. You've been doing this for quite some time. And before we dive into the work of the BAM FAM Foundation, I want to talk a little bit about Ian Leslie and how Ian went through his track growing up and what attracted you to sports and made you want to go this direction.
Well, starting off, I'm a military kid. Grew up a military kid. Have lived all over the U.S. Lived in four different states. Lived in Japan, so I was able to play sports in a lot of different areas and communities, and meet a lot of different people and make a lot of connections that way. Especially growing up, always had a natural nick from sports. Was actually a basketball player for the longest growing up, and then realized I was shorter than normal basketball players, and picked up football, and then ran with it ever since. Went to play for Texas Lutheran University in Seguin, Texas. Was an all conference running back there. Had the opportunity to play professionally, going more towards the XFL. Didn't work out in the way I wanted it to, but God blessed me and had another route for me to give back to the community through youth sports. So have a very broad background in football as well as other sports, just because of what I was able to participate to and do in my youth when it came to sports.
So you talked about being too short for basketball.
Uh-huh.
I think one of the things that's interesting is right when we're younger and we're kids and we're playing sports, we don't always think about that. We kind of go with the sport that we enjoy the most, or maybe the sport we're
Right.
best at when we're 8, 10, right, 12 years old.
Right.
And it's interesting to see that progression when you follow how many athletes really develop later, meaning high
Yes.
school or later.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that one of the challenges as you go through it is working with people and helping them understand that there are a lot of other opportunities there. So,
Right.
as you went through at Texas Lutheran, what did you study there?
I was a business marketing and management double major there. Um, Finished early, graduated in 3.5 years. So finished right after my last season in December, and then now I'm currently at UNT for their MBA program in sports and entertainment management.
So at UNT, which is North Texas, right?
Mhm.
You've got that sport management major. Tell us what kind of program that is and what you're studying there.
It's an awesome program. I'm really glad that I chose UNT. Definitely was expanding my options. Going from a small school, definitely wanted to get that bigger school stage. But reason I pretty much went to UNT is because of their partnership from the Cowboys. So graduate this May. My whole like year and a half, I guess it's been now. I've been able to do a lot of good projects with the Cowboys, meet some execs on their board as well as the Dallas Mavericks. So love the program. Love the professors. Love how intrinsic it is in terms of the value of the education and the connections that you do make. Because in the sports industry, as sure as you know, and everybody else knows, it's who you know, not necessarily what you know in certain cases. So definitely I'm grateful for the ability to network with some of the sports execs in the Dallas network as well, and it's definitely helped me out. As far as our programming and some of the athletes I deal with, have 3 or 4 clients on the Cowboys roster right now. So definitely provide some opportunity getting those networking connections.
Well, and that's always a great opportunity to get that real world experience. I think a
Right.
lot of people go through and go through their ideals of what they want to do when they finish school, and
Hmm.
often the reality is very different from what they see when they're working. I know when I
Right.
went to law
Right.
school, the reality of what happens in a courtroom and in a law firm is very different from what you're studying at law school. um, So I certainly understand that. So as you went through your playing days in the XFL and business marketing and management, now you're doing your MBA. So you've got definitely a strong business focus on what to do. Plus you've got the football background. So tell us where the BAM Fam Foundation came from.
So BAM, that acronym there actually comes from our sports marketing company. So on the sports marketing company, we do represent athletes across the NFL, NBA, and MLB as well. BAM starts with Cedric Benson. The late Cedric Benson just passed past last year. Great University of Texas running back, went on to play for the Bengals and the Bears as well. The A in BAM stands for Chris Anderson, the Birdman. You know, had a didn't have the easiest life going into his early career in sports, but that definitely made it happen. And then the M in BAM stands for Ollie Mayberry, who is the CEO and founder of BAM Sports Marketing. So then you tie it into the BAM Fam Foundation. We've been in the community for the past 15 years doing camps from all of our guys, camps, giveaways, things of that nature there. So we started the marketing company to fund our foundation just because we're in the community so much. Free camps, free opportunities. I know growing up myself, being able to have, the career in sports that I have, I didn't really get to even meet a professional athlete till I started working in the sports marketing industry. Um, so that being said, we just our main goal on both realms is to allow the underprivileged to become privileged, and that's the foundation of our foundation and our marketing company. We want to give back to those who don't necessarily have the same opportunities we have growing up, or even the opportunities that are presented. A lot of people miss out on opportunities because one, they don't know, so we bring that awareness, and two, not everybody has $500 to go to whoever's camp and whatever the case may be. So providing free programming and events tailored in with our professional athletes, we're able to give back and inspire and reach the youth that wouldn't have that opportunity regardless.
So, as you go through the acronym of BAM, that it shows you sort of the life cycle. You talked about Cedric Benson,
Hmm.
and what he went through, and certainly a much earlier death than anybody wants to
Expect
see in
right.
terms of what goes on. I know, he was here in Chicago, um, had a good reputation with a lot of the people around the community and things here.
Hmm.
So as you looked at the agenda, so the BAM representation in marketing is one side, but then you had that passion for launching a foundation.
Right.
So you talked about helping the underprivileged become privileged, and so as you look at that vision, what are the elements that you go through in terms of how you accomplish that?
Well, first it's identification, right? A lot from for dealing with our programs, we have a lot of schools and coaches and teachers and directors that when we bring a program like what we do in the community, they're surprised that we even pick them because they get overlooked so much. So by having the connections and networking and youth database that we have just from being in the camp side of sports for so long, we're able to really strategically go into the areas that need that impact. There's you could count on your 10 fingers and toes. How many areas in your immediate community that are underserved or at risk or don't really have certain opportunities as more affluent areas, right? So it's just a matter of reaching out, talking to people, getting to know your community, and making those connections and networking.
Yeah, and I think that you talk about those connections and the networking and the value of athletes as they have that disproportionate ability and impact to be able to garner attention. And
Hmm.
so they can draw that attention to the cause. Hopefully that helps raise some additional funds and work that way.
Right.
So, as you look at the details of what's going on, tell us a little bit about you know, when was BAM Foundation set up, and, tell us about the early days.
The early days. So we actually just recently became an official foundation this past year. So 10 days ago was when we officially got our official EIN or number right and everything like that. But like I said, we've been in the community for the past 15 years doing camps, doing military first responder appreciations, doing holiday givebacks with our clients and things of that nature. We actually have seven guys who are currently in the NFL right now who have been through our programmings. One of them is even our clients right now, Javier Edwards, who played defensive tackle for the Texans and then the Cardinals. Was actually in our camps all the way up through seventh, eighth grade. So it's just amazing to see that full circle. I was in BAM camps, going into high school and things of that nature there. So it's just interesting. The Jordan Shipley brothers were were in our camps back in the day. So it's just amazing to see the full circle of hey, like a couple years, I don't say a couple years ago, but a while back, I was youth in these camps, and now I'm running the foundation to be able to use my experiences and the opportunities that I've had to give back to the next generation. And because I'm young myself, but definitely um, very aware and grateful for the opportunity I have to give back to people in less fortunate situations.
So I think that's an important element, right? You talk about people that came through the camps and the programs
Hmm.
really come out of it with a different perspective, right? Than
Right.
somebody who has gone and been um, a star and successful their whole life and
Hmm.
maybe not had an easy life, but an easier life, um, and been able to work their way up and not necessarily understand what it means to all the kids in those camps to have former and current NFL players coming back and working with them.
Right, and not only like that's an important part is coming back to work with them, bringing it back to their community, not necessarily the kids having to go to an NFL game to interact with the local professional athlete or go to wherever the case may be. We're allowing our athletes to come back and give back to their communities that have given so much to them and responsible for the positions that they're in. You see a lot of times, um, even going into the virtual aspect now, we are able to see this a lot more. A kid, if we're hosting a camp in Austin, Texas, and you have a fan that's UT all the way, but they're in Oklahoma, they're less likely to probably participate in that camp, right, and miss out on some of those experiences just because of where they live or whatever the case may be. But now in this virtual realm, with due to COVID, we're able to reach more people with our program. This last year, we did 25 virtual camps with current and former athletes, reached over 30,000 kids with that. Had kids, tearing up mom's living room, doing our drills, stuff like that in the garage, in the park, whatever the case may be. Had parents hopping in, um, things of that nature there. So just definitely grateful we've been able to adapt and still reach the people and impact the youth that we've been able to, even during COVID.
Yeah, and you talk about reaching 30,000 kids. That's a big number.
Hmm.
Um, when you look at the virtuality of it, right? The virtual environment in some ways lets you reach more kids than if you had to have them come on site. So when
Right.
you look at a normal year when you're running camps in person, how many kids are you able to serve?
Ooh, I'm not a mathematician. So each one of our camps has anywhere from 200 to 300 kids, and we do anywhere from 20 to 40 camps throughout the summer, nationwide. So, Roy, I don't know if you want to do the math on that. I'm not a mathematician myself, but it gets up there. Then you tag how long we've been doing camps, the amount of camps we do it gets up there in the thousands, and we're glad to just be able to provide those free opportunities to kids to come out and interact with their favorite professional athlete or local professional athlete, or just come out there and work on their craft.
So as you pick the spots where you're doing these camps, you talk about 20 to 40 camps around the country. Are those cities you identify in advance, or is that based on where players are from or living and things of that nature?
So the way we attack that is each guy we represent and work with. We have a three-headed marketing scheme. Either that guy has to be a household in one of the three markets. Not everybody's a Tom Brady, not everybody's a Drew Brees in the NFL, right? But they still may have that household name where they played high school or where they played college, leading into professional. So by having those three marketing strategies, we're able to find success in that guy. So a lot of the guys like doing their camps back at their old high school or, somewhere where they played professionally or college ball or whatever the case may be. So that's how we attack it. We've had guys do multiple camps in multiple areas. Fozzie Whitaker is played for the Panthers for a long career. we probably do 2 or 3 camps with him every single year, just in different markets. Just he's that type of guy and wants to give back to the community. So that's the strategic head we use with marketing or community outreach for all of our guys.
So one of the questions that always comes up from organizations and from the young athletes is, as you said, not everybody's got money to pay for these camps. So
Mhm.
how are these camps funded? Is that through the athletes? Is that through other fundraising that the foundation does, or what's the mix there?
So we are a self-funded foundation. The camps are funded through us. We use 90% of our marketing income that we get from endorsements we do with our guys, appearances, things of that nature, to fund our foundation and to fund our community outreach programs and events. Um, again, players donate as well, and then we have sponsors that we reach out to be a part of stuff in certain communities, of course. But most of our programming and events and things of that nature, we're just doing it out of our pockets and out of our heart. Not a bad thing whatsoever, but definitely take pride in being a self-funded foundation, and being able to make stuff happen. To be honest with you, Rob, if we in certain cases if we waited for support from certain people, we'd still be at step number one in terms of getting stuff done. So definitely proud of what we've been able to accomplish in house. Of course, other entities it would help dramatically, but we pride ourselves on being self funded and being able to do what we're able to do when we're able to do it.
Well, and that's a big undertaking. I think people often underestimate what goes into running one of these camps
Right,
and
right.
the number of moving parts, liability, insurance, everything that goes along with it. So when you talk about putting a camp together for 2 or 300 kids, tell us about, from your end. Obviously, you guys have this down now. You're running 20 to 40 camps a year, so you've
Mhm.
got a pretty good system in place to handle that. But you know that takes a lot of effort. So tell us a little bit about some of that planning process, and give me a general sense of the budget it takes to run one of these camps, because I know there's a lot of hidden costs that people don't think about, whether it's renting the field or the increase in insurance costs and everything these days.
Right, right, and we've been blessed with a great staff. In doing so many camps, we have been fortunate enough to be able to master things of that nature. It's not easy doing camps across the country and having one camp on the other side of the state, and one on Friday, and then flying to another state on Saturday, and then whatever the case may be. So there is a lot of internal planning that goes on. We're starting our process for planning our camps now. Um, registration doesn't open up till March, and then our first camp probably won't be till April. But it definitely takes those a month in between to plan it. A lot of people think, we just release the flyer and show up that day and hope for the best, but that is not the case whatsoever. So the first thing we pretty much do in terms of scheduling our camps is reaching out to our guys. Hey, who wants to do a camp this year? You have some guys that are on the bubble, obviously, and they need to you spend their summer focusing more on securing a roster spot, so they're not as don't want to be as involved with the community, which is okay and understandable. And then you have guys that like, hey, I want to do a camp here and there. So first is sending out and figuring out who wants to do a camp. That's the hardest part. And then strategically, you go over the areas that we're able to do so. Are we going to have community support if we go here? Do we have great ties with the coaching staff and schools and youth organizations in that area? Things of that nature. There, getting those connections. Do we have a coaching staff? Do we have volunteers? All that stuff plays. Do we have a location? All that stuff plays into making a good experience. We try and make the experience for the kids the best that they've ever had. Each kid gets a full shirt and shorts. We feed them after the camp, so all of that, all that takes money. 200 shirts, 200, 300 shirts. That's a cost in itself. But if once you're doing it from the heart, it doesn't matter the cost, as long as you see the impact, and that's how we carry ourselves, and that's how we move forward with each camp. But definitely takes months and months in planning, and we're grateful that we have the staff who have the good hearts to make our camp successful, and provide that opportunity to over 200 plus kids over 40 times. So um, really hang our hats on what we were able to do this past summer doing 25 virtual camps. Again, we were all geared up to have our camps regular. Our first camp was going to be April 18th with New Orleans Saints Craig Robertson, and we weren't gonna pull the plug, and we just decided. I think it was like April 14th or whatever the case. We were like, you know what, let's do the virtual aspect. Let's not cancel all of everything. Let's still try and provide the opportunity. And then another player reached out. Hey, okay, I want to do mine virtual too. Started picking up from there. So even on the virtual side, it definitely takes planning. We were able to use Zoom as our network for kids and run it live. It wasn't a pre-recorded camp; it was live. So, Roy, as you can tell, going live, there's no room for mess ups. If you mess up, you look stupid in front of everybody. And we were lucky enough to have the ideas and put our heads together to be able to run our virtual camps live on three platforms. We were running it live on Zoom, we were running it live on Facebook, we were running it live on Twitter and on Instagram, to be able to cater to those people that not everybody has a Zoom or knows how to operate stuff like that. So even in a virtual sense, it's not easy operating a camp, but we're just glad we have the staff and the resources to do so.
Yeah, and you raised some interesting challenges there. Again, you talked about the logistics of the camp. So tell us about the format of the camp. How long do these camps go, and what's included kind of in the program that you're running?
So each camp is 3 hours. Most of our camps start at 9 a.m. and go to around noon or 1. What's included is, again, we meet them up. We have a nice educational talk at the beginning. We get them up, we'll stretch them, and then it consists of multiple drills with our players. Obviously, housing 200 to 300 kids, it may change depending on numbers. But it pretty much goes hour by hour. We really focus on getting that interaction with the athlete and the coaching staff, whether it's we have NFL coaches coming to help out, whether it's the players coming to help out. It's not one of the camps where the player shows up at the end or even shows up for 5 minutes, just shows their face. No, we actually have the player bouncing around from drill to drill, really allowing for that engagement, but allowing them to teach, the things that they know, rules of the game, how they got where they got, really perfecting the craft, especially for the high school kids that need that valuable information to make it to the next level. That's what we hang our hats on. As far as the rest of the camp afterwards, we give away camp awards. We have camp MVPs. We'll team up with some sponsors to give away, some signed material, some footballs, equipment, whatever cool products, and we kind of collaborate with our players on what type of give backs we want to cater during those events. But then we also feed them after the camp too as well. Mom and dad, mom and dad kind of have it easy where we're not just like, hey, we just did a 3 hour long camp. Here's your kid all hungry and sweaty and things of that nature there. So we definitely try and feed them afterward and try to, again, make the overall experience as memorable and as fun as possible.
So as you do that, then for the kids, then there's no cost for them to participate
Mm,
in the camp. So this is a great experience, and I love the fact that the athletes are there for the whole time, because we've all
right,
seen too many situations where they either come at the beginning and give a 5 minute rah rah pitch, and then they're off to the golf course, or vice versa. They show up right at the
right,
end and do the same thing, and it really makes a different impact on the kids when you
exactly,
look at somebody who's there with you for giving you those 3 hours and interacting, and you see their heart and soul being put into it. It's a
exactly,
completely different experience.
exactly.
So as you talked about before, you mentioned seeing the impact that it makes on these kids. So how do you evaluate or measure that type of impact and what's going on and what the kids' experience has been through these camps?
We measure it by the amount of kids we have coming back. As I said, we've had clients been in our programs over the years that have made it all the way to the NFL, that have made it all the way to college. So it's amazing to see the transformation of kids who maybe started off in our programs in middle school, and they're going into their senior year and they're still coming to our camp. So that's how we measure it. One thing we hang our hats on is we're not teaching just sports. There's life after sports as well. So by hanging our hats on that educational factor, not everybody's going to make it to the next level. Not everybody's going to get the opportunity to play college ball. Not everybody's going to get the opportunity to play in the NFL. But we're able to educate them on those life lessons that will make them a leader in the community. We don't want just to make them a better athlete after our camps. We want to make them a better person. And by instilling those educational values and lessons that we do in our camp, and stories, having come people talk, and just creating that dialogue about life during and after sports, because there is life after sports. we're able to, expand and see and impact a bigger demographic. You'll have some kids that probably have never played football in their life, but they're coming out just for the experience, just for the connections and the that they're able to have at our camps and the life lessons that they're able to learn.
Well, it sounds like you give them a pretty full experience in that limited time that you have access to them.
Hmm.
I know that's always a challenge in many of these environments is getting access to the kids and giving them an opportunity that is meaningful in a way that they can see what's going on.
Hmm.
So you've definitely tracked a lot of these guys that have come through, been successful, come back and contribute. As you are talking to our network and everybody that listens and that we engage with, what are some ways that people can help, whether they want to have a camp, sponsor a camp, um, find other ways to support the Bam Fam Foundation? What are things that people can do to help you?
Well, one, just reach out to us. My email is available, Ian Leslie X at BAM PR Marketing. You can reach out to us via social media, inquiring about anything. Again, we're open to impacting as many youth as we can, and that takes us going to new areas and doing new things that we have not done. So as far as reaching out to how you can help, you can donate at bamfam.org if you want to be a part of our camps, or just support our camps, our ride along program, our other community initiatives. If you just want to do your part, you can donate at bamfam.org. Volunteers. We're a nationwide organization. Obviously, we have more numbers and areas than others. So if you want to volunteer and come out and show your support that way, again, just visit us at bamfam.org. We have a volunteer tab. You can fill that out, and we'll have you in our database and volunteers in different areas that we're in. But we welcome all and any support. There's no support that we don't that we don't need. Again, we are only as good as the community that we're in, or as great as the community is that we are in. So again, just donate. You can volunteer. Bamfam.org. We're a nationwide organization. We could be coming to any city. We have a lot of connections nationwide, so we could be in any city at any point in time. That being said, I want to be able. Our slogan is 1 million kids, 1 summer. 1 million kids, 1 summer. So we're not going to stop until we reach 1 million kids in 1 summer. That number continues to grow and to grow and to grow and to grow and to grow each year. So we hang our hat on that, and we will get to that, and that will take help from the community that we're in to reach those goals.
You mentioned briefly in that description your ride along program, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that yet. Why
Mhm.
don't you tell us a little bit more about how that works and what that consists of?
Perfect, perfect. So our ride along program is actually my favorite program. I could talk about this for hours on end, but this is our social justice component, and our a good basis of it is it's a way to bridge the gap between youth in the community and their local police department. So what our ride along program entails is we pair a local athlete up with a local police department, and we have them do a reverse ride along, where we actually have the athlete drive the officer around. They have an open conversation about the needs of that community, specific events that we have going around in the US, just from two different takes. You have from the athlete side and from the department side, obviously. And then we partner with a local school or youth organization where we conduct a curriculum-based Q&A session with the department, the athlete, and the youth. This now opens up the dialogue between the youth and the police department that polices them. We talk about certain scenarios such as who knows what to do during a traffic stop, what type of training that the department is taking to address social justice issues, what type of social justice issues or questions do the youth have, and just creating that opportunity for that dialogue. Certain conversations concerning social justice is not happening in every household, or even in the school, but we see so much negative events on social media that it kind of floods our mind, right? It doesn't always show the positive experiences that can be had, or the good people that are out there. There are good cops as well as there are bad cops, and there are bad people just as there are good people, right? So it is a way to bridge the gap and come together to find a common ground. Okay, how can we grow? How can we educate? How can we inspire each other to, not have another year like 2020, or not have events keep repeating themselves? It's a lack of communication, and it's a lack of awareness. You have to understand what a certain person is thinking. The police officer has to understand how to how to interact with a certain group or interact with the youth and get to know them. You should know who you're policing. At the same time, we need our youth to know the law and know how to carry themselves when they're speaking to somebody of authority. Not what Twitter tells them, not what Instagram tells them, not even what mom and dad know tells them. We need to educate them on what the proper law and procedure um, is when it comes to law enforcement, because law enforcement is not an easy job, it's not a safe job, and they do have those necessary things that they have to look for and things of the nature that they have to deal with, which we understand. But it's both sides need to work together for a common ground. So we provide that opportunity with the Q&A session, and then we top it off with a fun sports clinic. The reason we bring in the sports clinic component is we break it down to the youth's level. If we're doing it with a football team, obviously that's something they do every day with practice. So now they can relate more with the officer and just have fun. We do three components. We do a relay race, we do dodgeball, we do tug of war. We have a little bit of fun. If we're doing dodgeball with high school kids, when's the last time they played dodgeball? Probably like sixth grade. Okay, now when's the last time they probably played dodgeball with an officer or whatever the case may be? But that shows them a new way to engage with an officer and to have fun, because if you bring in that fun component with that educational component, they're going to remember that down the line. We could just do this program where we just have police departments come in and talk, and it's going to go out one ear and out the other. But if we bring in a Super Bowl champion or former national college champion or whatever the case, to break that can someone that can relate with them a lot more, we can build those experiences and we can build those relationships by relating to each other and getting to know each other. So I could talk about this program all day, Roy. Honestly, it's my favorite program. We've done this all over the country. In 2020, we were able to do 15 episodes in eight states. Went to 12 different cities. Worked with 11 different police departments. We're able to pack over 1,000 kids with that one program in itself. And it's a growing program. We have our first down ride along program, which is our geared toward our football players. We're starting to uh, expand into other sports. We're about to start our buckets and badges program, which will deal with current and former NBA players. We have our bats and badges program, which is going to be baseball players. So it's a growing program. It's a needed program, and we're happy to just be able to provide that opportunity to youth and police departments across the country.
Well, and I think that's an area certainly that there's a great opportunity for people in our network to work with you and collaborate to help set up some of those
Mm,
types of programs because it's needed. The events that we see going on in this country over the course of 2020 and things that occurred recently at the Capitol, right?
right.
There's a clear need for that. And I think that it really helps break down the barriers when people get an opportunity to interact and see what's going on from somebody else's perspective and
Exactly.
understand the challenges that they have from their side. So I think that that's an outstanding program, and I want to congratulate you on being able to put that all together because there's just an incredible opportunity there to help really enhance the communities because communities build and take care of themselves. And we, I
Right.
think, all have an opportunity. Those of us that have been blessed enough to be able to be working, be successful in our careers, and be able to
Hmm.
go out and help other people understand and give them an opportunity for them to grow and develop over the course of their time. So, you've done incredible work there. Like I said, I know our audience will reach out to people and have opportunities for collaborations with you along the year here in 2021. And we're excited to do that. Before I let you go, though, I do want to put you on the spot, Ian. I know, now that your eyes are popping out, you've had great success with the foundation. We're going to use our superpowers from the Sports Philanthropy Network and wave our magic wand. And we're going to ask you. We're going to make you commissioner of one of the sports. So tell us what sport you'd like to be commissioner of.
Definitely would like to be commissioner of the NFL.
Okay.
NFL.
So now you're going to walk onto Park Avenue and kick Roger out of his office and tell him that he's done now and you're going to take over. So in your first act as commissioner, what would you like to see? Either a rule change, something on the field, or some type of policy change that happens differently for the league?
I would definitely change some rules around the targeting situation. That is a growing and evolving situation that we see. growing up, the way I played, and the way I played in college, things of that nature, I'm a very aggressive, aggressive player, and we definitely want to cater to safer ways to play. But just seeing some of the calls we've even seen recently in this year, where it dictates the game just because of that one targeting card. We can even think of the past game with Clemson. Uh, Clemson and Ohio State, where that player, I can't remember his name, but that was his second time in that building getting ejected for targeting and things of that nature there. So I just think there's certain instances um, where a player can only do so much, or at least I know from a defender's standpoint, and you don't want to take a certain capacity of aggressiveness away from the game. So it's a touchy subject, Roy, but just targeting that we need to figure out some way to alleviate some of the injuries that can come from tackling with your head down, obviously. But I wouldn't say making calls such as targeting when it's a regular hit or it's a good hit or whatever the case may be, or a player spinning and it's just a lack of location there should make certain calls on a game. I'm a Clemson fan, so I'm kind of salty salty about the Ohio State game on that note. But definitely targeting is a issue that I think I would change if I was NFL commissioner. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that there's a big attempt to limit head injuries,
Hmm.
right? The brain injuries, concussions, whatever term people decide they want to use. The reality is those are all significant concerns and long-term damage that people may not recognize, right? If you break your
Right.
ankle, you know about it today, but 6 weeks from now, it's pretty much good to go. 8 weeks
Right.
from now, right? You do a
Right.
bit of rehab and you're good to go. um, the brain injuries are really a different situation. What I don't like in the targeting is you can't understand the intent of what's going through a player's head. So I fully
Exactly.
recognize that there's certain types of plays and actions that I think most of us would consider targeting. When the guy
Hmm.
launches himself and is going to hit up high, um, I think that that's a reasonable call. The ones that bother me are when the player's diving to make a tackle and the runner or receiver move their body in their framework, and then there's a collision because they're diving but basically at the same time and their heads
Hmm.
happen to hit, or
Right.
the
Right.
helmet happens to hit somewhere. And I understand that you want people to be under control, but the reality is football is not a game of being under 100% control. It's
Right.
controlled violence, and it's a collision sport, not an impact sport. And so you really have to allow players to play football. So if you're coming up to make the tackle and Justin Fields spins and you hit him clearly with your helmet in the back,
Hmm.
but if he had run straight up, straight through instead of spinning, you would have had your helmet in perfect tackling position,
Right.
right on the side of his body, your shoulder right into him, and taking him down with a nice solid tackle. Um, I don't like that those plays get legislated out. I think that they look bad.
Hmm.
I understand the intent to reduce injury, but I'm more concerned about the ones where you have a receiver up in the air and the safety's coming across, puts his head down and puts his helmet right in.
Right.
You know,
And you touched on a good note. I feel like a lot of it caters to if it looks bad, because we have a lot of calls that are overlooked because they don't necessarily look bad. So I think that's definitely you hit the nail on the hammer with that one.
well, Ian, I want to commend you on the great work you're doing. We're going to see what we can do to get some more camps that we can collaborate with you and create some ride along programs. And want to thank you again for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me on. And then last note, just want to say they're out there again, bamfam.org, guys. You can follow us on social media at bamfam501c3. We have a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram where you can follow up and keep up with news and updates about what we're doing and where we're going to be. But again, Roy, thank you for the opportunity. It was great speaking with you as always, and look forward to working with you again soon.
Well, keep up that great work. We'll put all of that information and links on the page for the podcast. So when people come and listen and look at what's going on, we're going to have that featured and be able to send them directly to the Bam Fam Foundation website. For all of our listeners and viewers, we want to thank you for joining us for the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. We hope you'll come back for our next episode. This is Roy Kessel signing off. Don't forget to live generously. Thank you.